Hello and good day everyone. Today I'm going to show you 4 decks that you can play with the new expansion Domination that's coming out later today. So let's dive right into it. The first deck I'm going to show you is a Seraphine Viktor Shellfolk deck. It's a deck that's going to create a lot of value, making it so we can outgrind our opponent. And for this, Seraphine Viktor and Shellfolk all make a very good combination. I'm going to show you why. So first we have Seraphine. If you don't know already, she's a 2-mana 1/4 that when summoned creates a random 2-cost spell in your hand, and she levels when you've played 6+ new spells this game. And after she's leveled, she will double every 2 or lower cost spell that is new that you're playing. So of course we're going to be including a lot of 2-cost or lower spells or ways to generate them. And then Viktor we play. He has Augment, 4-mana 2/4, and the Viktor spell you get actually counts for either leveling Seraphine or getting it doubled with Seraphine on the field. Also we play a lot of created cards in the deck, or cards that can create cards in the deck. So it should be easy to level him up, and he can be a really big threat for our opponent that he has to clear. Also making a lot of our cards cheaper once he's leveled. That's also be very helpful. And then the Curious Shellfolk. Whenever you pick a non-champion card between selected options, create a copy in hand, reduces cost by 1. You will find that we play a lot of cards that gives us the option to choose from. So she will be able to get a lot of value in this deck, as I'm going to show you right now. So cards we're going to be running are the Fallen Feline. The Hexite Crystal it creates in your deck is a 2-cost spell, and if you get it doubled, it will deal 4 damage to all of your opponent units, and also the Nexus, which will be very strong. It's also a good minion for to block early aggression, because we're playing a value game. Early aggression will be one of our our weak points, but Fallen Feline will fit that category perfectly to deal with those early aggression cards. Same goes for Yordle Squire. It's also a 1-mana 2/1. You can play her to create either a tiny spear or a tiny shield. There are 1-mana spells that either buff the attack by 1 or the defense of one of your units by 1. They're both excellent to level Viktor, to make Viktor stronger, to level Seraphine, to get them doubled by Seraphine, and it also lets you choose between 2 options, so you can also get those with Shellfolk for even more value. Then we play Conjologist. This is already a very strong card in every Bandle City deck, but especially in this one. It lets us create a card, which will be good for Viktor. It lets you choose between options for Shellfolk. And the spells you can get are 3 or less, which means they have a very decent chance of being 2 or less, getting them doubled for Seraphine, or just getting a new spell to level Seraphine. Then we play Ferrous Financer. He's just a decent blocker in the early game, and it provides us with a high cost spell that can help us get clearance in the late game, or just find more value to even outground your opponent even more. It also lets you choose between an option, and the card you get is created for Viktor, so it could also be reduced by Viktor to make it a little bit more playable. Just a very strong card in almost every PNZ deck, so it should be strong in this as well. Then we play Aloof Travelers. It's just a strong draw card, allowing you to cycle through your deck, but it also, and that's the main point of including it here, it discards your opponent's highest card, which sometimes can be threats that we can't really deal with. I find that this deck should be having a hard time against cards like the Harrowing. Allowing you to throw that card away from their hand will allow you to deal with that card without actually having to deal with it on board when it gets a little hard to deal with. And just a very strong Bandle City card at this time and age, especially with Swain in the meta. Being able to throw away Leviathans, also really nice. So yeah, very versatile card that's going to do a lot for us. Then we play Thermogenic Beam. This is a way to deal with our opponent's threats. We don't have a lot of removal in the deck, so this is definitely nice. Also a spell that you can use to level Seraphine. Then we play Trinket Trade. Trinket Trade is a very versatile card, especially in this deck. It's a 1-mana card, so it either helps leveling Seraphine or doubling it. You can either select the Other Puss, which also allows you to get a card that you can use to level Seraphine or to double it. Or 2 spells that cost 3 or less, also very synergetic with Seraphine. All of the cards that you create, of all of the cards that you can get, are created for Viktor, and you get to pick at least once, and if you choose the other person, you get to pick twice for Curious Shellfolk, making it very strong of her as well. Then we play Mystic Shot. This is just a very strong PNZ card as it is, but it's especially strong because it's 2 mana. It can be doubled with Seraphine, so of course we're running it. I do opt to only play 2 copies of this. Same goes for most of the spells in the deck, because I think it's worth it to play only 2 copies, so the chances of it being new are a little bit bigger, which will help with Seraphine a lot. Also, I think we can cycle through a lot of our deck and find a lot of value in cards like Congeologist that we don't really need to play 3 of these. So therefore there's only 2 of them. Then we play 2 Pokestick, just a very strong card in Bendel City, played in every Bendel City deck. Of course we're going to play it here, especially because we can double it with Seraphine. Yeah, it's a no-brainer. Then we play Time Trick. I think this is a very strong card. It allows you to find the Hexite crystals that you put in your deck with the Fallen Feline, and also it can either help level Seraphine, or if Seraphine is already leveled, this becomes a 2 mana draw 2, and there are actually 2 cards that you can pick between 3 cards in your deck, which seems very strong to me. Then we play the Drum Solo. I'm not entirely sold on this card in this deck, because we already generate a lot of value. I don't know if we really want to draw that many cards, but Flow should be very easy to activate in this deck, so I definitely want to try it out, see if it's any good. And also it's a new card, we have to try out the new cards for the new expansion, so therefore I'm really eager to try this card out. It seems really strong, reducing the card cost, especially if you hit something like Minimorph or Sputtering Songsinger, that your opponent doesn't expect them anymore because you're already below 6 mana. Could definitely be nice in certain situations. Then we play the Minimorph. This is just one of the few ways that these regions have to deal with a really big threat. Just turn it into a 3/3 that doesn't do anything, and you can easily deal with a 3/3. Very strong card, played in almost every Bendel City deck that's currently in the meta, so we're definitely playing this. And then the last card of the deck is the Sputtering Songsinger. This is a card that was already seeing a little experimentation in Heimerdinger Jace decks, not the past seasonals, but the seasonals before that. And I think this deck is really the place where this card gets to shine. Because you get to pick cards, you can. It's very strong with a Shellfolk on the field, but it's also very strong with Viktor because all of the spells that you get are created, and it's also very strong with Seraphine because all of the spells that you get are new and they're 2 cost or lower, so they will be doubled. So I've decided to include 2 copies of it because I think it's a very strong late game value generator that can really turn the game around, especially if you have Shellfolk and Seraphine on the board. The value you get from this card is crazy. So I'm looking forward to having some crazy games with this deck, getting a lot of value and just outgrinding my opponent while I have a big Viktor, get a lot of cards with Shellfolk, or just double all those spells with Seraphine. It looks great fun to me. Now let's go on to the next deck. The next deck I want to show you is a Master Yi and Varus deck. I think Master Yi and Varus combine very good together. The spell cost reduction for Master Yi allows you to cast a lot of spells, and also I think Ionia is a very good region to combine with Varus, because it has a lot of spells that target ally and also create a card that also targets an ally, making it easier for Varus to level up, which I think is going to be the biggest challenge in any Varus deck. And also because the Ionia cards target an ally and create a card that also target an ally, it's going to be very easy to activate Flow, which also is going to be very strong for Master Yi. So let's get over the cards. I've already talked about Master Yi a little bit, but at round start it reduces the cost of a spell in your hand by 1, and if you've activated Flow, grant all Master Yis +2/+0. This should be very easy to do because we have a lot of cards that create a second copy, making it so we can trigger Flow quite easily. And also, reducing the cost of spells allows us to get a bigger combo with Varus, which is going to be our win condition. Then, of course, we play Varus. For those who don't know, Varus is one of the new champions that's going to release. It's a Runeterra champion. It has the same origin as Kayn, allowing you to put cultist cards into your deck. It levels when you've targeted 8+ allies, and then it gets Overwhelm +1/+1. And it also has a weapon that gets +1 attack every time you play a spell until the first time he strikes, which is doubled whenever he levels. So this can make him a very big threat because he has both Overwhelm and Quick Attack, and he can get up to 10 bonus attack, making him 14 attack. So we're going to find a way to make a combo that we can one turn kill our opponent with this, or just do it in 2 turns. I think the idea of the deck looks a little bit like Lee Sin, where you try to kill someone in 1 turn or over 2 turns with your Lee Sin, except here we're going to do it with Varus. So the minions I included in this deck are the Vestayan Disciple. If you've seen any Ionia deck in the past season, you are surely going to have seen this card already. It's a very strong card, allows you to draw through your deck. You can use this. You can attack with you can attack the Nexus with this multiple times, allowing you to draw more than 1 card. Very strong. Also, because it returns to your hand as a spell, you can activate Flow with it, which is also very strong. Just a very strong early card to get some draws in. So we're definitely playing this. The second card we're going to play is Eye of the Dragon. This is a minion that will help us survive through the early game. As I said, activating Flow should be very easy in this deck, so you'll be able to get a lot of Dragonlings. The Dragonlings can also be attack buffed to increase our life gain or to get rid of our opponent's threats while blocking or attacking. So this is a very strong deck for this card, just to survive until we've drawn our combo. Then we include the Ionian Hookmaster. Some of our spells require that we have equipped an ally this game. Of course, Varus is already going to get equipped when we play him, but sometimes we want to save Varus so we can actually play him with a combo to finish our opponent. And then the Ionian Hookmaster is a very good minion that you can play as a blocker, but also to have something equipped. And once it dies, you get the equipment to your hand. You can use it to equip your allies, also targeting them, leveling Varus, and also getting some strong buffs on your other creatures. Also, you could get the Scout Weapon, which will be very strong to use on our Varus. So yeah, definitely good inclusion in this deck. And as our last unit or follower, we're going to play the Spirit of Wuju, also one of the new cards. If you've activated Flow, it costs 2 less, making this a 3 mana 4/3, which is very good stats. And when it summons, it draws a spell. Drawing spells, we play a lot of spells. Drawing spells is one of the ways we win our game, because we need to level Varus and also have enough spells left that we can actually make a combo with Varus to win the game. So this minion feels as a natural inclusion, as Flow should be activated very easily in this deck. Then for the spells, the first spell we're going to include, it's not going to be a surprise, it's Momentous Choice. It was already very strong, finding its way into both Nami decks and also some of Lee Sin decks. So yeah, very strong card. We're playing both the Ionian Hookmaster and the Varus, so the chance that this is going to be activated when we draw it is very big. And also it's a cultist spell, so it can be used to draw Varus, and it's especially strong with Varus already on the field, because then the weapon will count this as two copies, making it plus 4 attack if he's unleveled, or plus 6 attack when he's leveled. Also, it's a card that activates twice, so it activates Flow. So yeah, just a very strong and natural inclusion in this deck. It also targets allies, so it also allows us to level our Varus. Then we play Wuju style. It's a little bit the same thing like Momentous Choice, except you will have to spend a little bit more mana. It gives you 2 cards that target allies, so it helps level Varus. It also helps level Master Yi, because you can activate both of them to get the Flow effect. And it can also be used just to let your creature survive spells from your attacks from your opponent, or just attacks from your opponent. Yeah, just a very strong card. Also saw a lot of play in the Nami and Lee Sin decks. So yeah, we're definitely going to be playing this card in this deck. Then we play 3 copies of Sonic Wave. The same thing goes for this card. It allows you to target a creature, getting another card that also targets a creature. This card is going to be very strong with Master Yi and Varus, because they both have quick attack, allowing them to clear out a threat without any cost to your own creatures, and also very strong with the Dragonlings that you get from the Eye of the Dragon, because you can just clear out a minion for free, giving it even more attack, so you lifesteal a little bit more. I think this card is going to be very strong in this deck. Next card we're going to be playing is the Violent Discord. It requires you to have equipped an ally, but that shouldn't be too hard in this deck. and after you've done that, it will deal 1 to a unit twice. This is also a cultist spell, so this is one of the cards that will allow us to draw Varus. And just having some removal, I feel, is very strong in this deck. Also, it counts as two spells being spilled, so it will activate Flow. It doesn't level our Varus because we're not likely going to be targeting our allies with this unless we really need to, but I don't see that happening a lot. But it's definitely just a decent card, which will draw Varus from our deck, which was going to be very essential for finishing the game. Then I added two copies of Concussive Palm. I think this card could be replaced. If you think Ionian Tailstones or Will of Ionia is stronger for you, you can definitely replace them with this. I opted to go with Concussive Palm because we don't have a lot of creatures that can block Fearsome. So this gives us both a stun and a creature that can block Fearsome. You never know if it comes in handy, and if I playtest this and I find out that I actually want Will of Ionia or Ionian Tailstones more frequently than this, I might just trade them out for those. But we need some form of protection or stall, and this is the one I chose for that. But Will of Ionia is definitely also good in this. Then we want 2 copies of Deny. This allows us to deny our strong opponent's threats, like Harrowing, but it also allows us to deny removal on our Varus, especially the turn that we want to try and kill our opponent. We want to save 1 for that moment. But sometimes you will feel the need to activate this earlier because your opponent just does something that you really need to stop, otherwise you're going to lose the game. Very strong in any combo-oriented deck. It is also already run in the Lee Sin decks, so we're definitely running it as well. Then this is the card I'm really enthusiastic about in this deck. Flurry of Fists. It grants an ally +1/+0 and quick attack, and or if it already has quick attack, it grants a double attack instead. This is the way that Varus is going to be able to close out games single-handedly. Varus and Mosti both already have quick attack, and especially with Varus when it's leveled and he has the weapon, this will give him +3/+0 and double attack, while he already has Overwhelm, making him very, very dangerous for your opponent. You could get Varus up to 14 attack. If he has 14 attack with Overwhelm and double attack, your opponent is going to have a very hard time blocking that and being able to survive it, because he needs a unit with 8 health or more. So I think this is going to be the card that's going to be our game finisher. Like Lee Sin has with Absolver, this is going to be our strong finisher. I'm only playing 2 copies of it because we play 3 copies of Deep Meditation and 3 copies of the Spirit of Wuju, so I feel like we should be able to draw one of the copies at least in our game. And you don't want to have too many of them into your hand because they don't really do anything else except for finish the game. Then I've added 1 copy of the Expense Protection. It's a card that once you've equipped an ally, it costs 2 less, giving ally spell shield this round. This is also for the insane Varus turn. You already run the Nice, but I thought running 1 copy of this might also be warranted. There's a lot of ways to draw this, so it should be we should be able to draw it if we need it. Being able to put spell shield on it and also having a deny in your hand seems like it's going to be very hard for your opponent to have a way to deal with that. So that's why I included it here. It's also a cultist spell, so it might also be the card we play just so we can draw the Varus from our deck. But I would suggest that more oftenly you use it in your combo turn to finish your opponent. And the last card in the deck I already spoiled. It's going to be Deep Meditation. We should be able to activate Flow very easily. We are a little bit draw dependent because we are going to play a lot of our cards just to survive or to level Varus. So drawing spells from our deck seems like a very strong thing to do. Also because this is also a spell, it can also help activate your Flow and just drawing through our deck, finding our combo cards and then winning the game. Very strong. There's even some fun things you can do in this deck. Because Master Yi can reduce the cost of spells permanently, our combo could even be done all together in 1 turn. So Varus costs 4 mana, the Flurry of Fists costs 4 mana, you want to have a Deny just in case, that's also 4 mana, the Expense Protection maybe for 2 mana, and a Momentous Choice just to get him to full attack for 1 mana, that's going to be 15 mana total. But if you reduce the cost of 2 of those spells with Master Yi by 1, you can do this for 13 mana. You can actually do this in 1 turn. I don't think that's going to happen a lot, but it's doable, and that sounds like a very strong combo. And if you can play your Varus a turn earlier, you can already do this combo just in 1 turn, making it very strong. So that's the way we're going to win games with this deck. Master Yi are already going to be threatening for our opponent, so we hope to get Master Yi to get some removal out of our opponent's hands, and then we can play Varus with a deny in the backhand, maybe an expense protection, and win the game. So that's the second deck. Let's go on to the third deck. So the third deck I'm going to show you is a Jax Vayne deck. If you've seen my Vayne reaction video yesterday, I already thought that Vayne would be very strong combined with Jax. It could possibly also be strong combined with Quinn and then just any other region, but I find it hard to find a lot of good equipment that's 2 or less. I find that the Golden Spatula might be run in a version like that, but I just don't think it's that good. So I'm just going with Jax. I think that's just the obvious choice, but I also found a list that I think is very enjoyable. So I'll run you through it. So of course we probably already know Jax. He was released in the previous expansion. He auto-equips the Light of Icavia, and he levels up when equipped allies have struck for 15 plus damage. Light of Icavia gives him quick attack, and when he's leveled it also gives him overwhelm, and he gets +1/+1, making him a very legit threat, because he will also get +1/+1 for each equipped ally on the field whenever he attacks. So he's a big threat on its own, warrants a removal from your opponent. Then we play Vayne, a new champion. If you haven't seen it, her being released yesterday, she's a 3 mana 3/4. When she's summoned or round starts, she creates a tumble in hand, or if you already have one, reduce its cost by 1. She levels up when she has seen you attack 4 times, and then she gets +1/+1, and she creates a tumble that costs 0 or reduces your cost of tumble in your hand by 3 if you already have one, making it actually that every time you get a tumble, it's just going to be a 0 cost card. And tumble allows you to pick one of your allies. It will gain a free attack, and it will also equip a equipment from your hand that's 2 or less costed. So a lot of the Jax improvised weapons are going to be 2 cost, all of them actually, making them good targets for the Vayne Tumble, and therefore a good pick. The Jax weapon itself is also 2 or less, so you could also equip that, although I don't think you really want to do that unless you have a leveled Jax weapon in hand. The normal Life of Acavias before Jax is leveled, I think, are not that good, and you might want to throw them away. But you could find some uses for that as we'll go through the deck. So followers I have included in the deck are going to be the Fleet Feather Tracker. I just think this is one of the strongest 1-drops that Demacia has. A 1 mana 2/1 that can get Challenger is just very strong to get rid of some annoying threats from your opponent. Also, you can put an equipment on this, making it even stronger, making it able to get rid of bigger threats. Just a very strong card in my opinion, and a natural inclusion. Then we play the Ionian Hookmaster. This is just one of the strongest improvise minions that has been released. It saw a lot of play in Nami decks, in Lee Sin decks. Everywhere where you wanted to put a momentous choice in it, Ionian Hookmaster was probably there. So it's a very strong 2-cost minion. When she dies, you get equipment in your hand, allowing you to have an equipment for Tumble, for Vayne, but also a different effect here is going to want you to have that. Yeah, just a very strong card. I don't think I need to say a lot about this card that hasn't already been said. Just a very strong card that allows you to get an equipment. Then we play the Patricid Broadwing. I think this is just a very strong 2-cost follower, allowing it to get Challenger, getting rid of some of your opponent's threats. There are certain improvised equipments that actually help make this a stronger card, especially the Impact one, but giving it quick attack, just the Jax weapon could also be decent, and it's also just decent on its own. That's why I included it here. Just being able to pick up some of your opponent's threats so your other units can attack freely or just make favorable trades. Very strong minion. Then we play the Wandering Shepherd. I think from the 3-cost improvise followers, this is the stronger one. The other one has a tune, which is nice, but having one less health, making it pingable with a lot of weapons. And I think you want to pick a weapon that's actually good for you and not having to cover for being only one health, being able to get pinged off by Pokestick, Vile Feast, or cards like that. So I think the 2 health one is better. Also, you can target an ally with this, making it instantly strong on one of your other cards if you've played this later in the game. So that's where we're going with this. Improvise, of course, helps with Jax and also helps with Vayne. So yeah, I think this is a good card in this deck. Then I put the Combat Cook in the deck, especially with the Vayne card effects, like putting a 2-cost equipment on one of your units for free. This one is going to be huge because you actually get to forge the equipment, making it +1/+1. So every time you use this equipment you get from the Combat Cook, it's going to be even more effective, and also the reducement is going to be even stronger. So I think this is a natural inclusion in the deck. It's just a strong card by itself, allowing it to be a 4-mana 4/5 impact, or a 4-mana 5 for fearsome, or whatever you're going to pick at that moment that you're really missing. Yeah, just a very strong minion, and I feel like you need to include this because the forged weapon is going to be a lot stronger than the other improvised weapons. Then a card I really found should be good in this deck is the Ranger Knight Defector. It's a cultist card. It's a 4-mana 4/3 that has tough, and once you've equipped an ally this game, grant me Scout. Scout is going to help a lot for the Vayne level up, because you can attack with this twice, allowing Vayne to have seen 2 attacks. And then if you get to use the tumble anywhere, that's already free. You only need to get 1 more attack and level Vayne. I think that's the main reason why this is a strong card. If you get the tumble this card, it also gets an equipment, making it even more powerful. If you get something like quick attack or overwhelm on this, you can do a lot of damage or clear a lot of threats from your opponent's board. So yeah, I think this is just a very strong card in this deck. You definitely want to be playing this. Having the Scout to be able to level your Vayne, I think is going to be a very big deal. I was thinking about playing the 4-mana Widowed Hunter, but I just think that the Combat Cook and the Ranger Knight Defector are just a little bit better, therefore not finding a place to include her. Although I do think she's strong, I just think that these cards fit the bill a bit better, therefore choosing for these ones. And the final follower we're going to be playing is also one of the new cards. It's going to be Bloodcursed Harpy. I feel like this card could be very strong. It already has Scout on itself, which makes it excellent for leveling Vayne. And it has an effect that if you get to equip him with an equipment that costs 2 or less from your hand. Well, we already see that with the Vayne Tumble effect, but this is going to be very strong in this deck because there are a lot of 2-cost equipments that we're going to be able to make. And also the first time he would die while equipped, he fully heal me and destroy the equipment instead. So there are a lot of good equipments for this. You can either get the Overwhelm equipment, you can get the Quick Attack equipment that's very strong with this. Possibly also even the Impact one, just to give him more health so he dies later on. The Jax leveled up equipment is going to be very good, giving him both Quick Attack and Overwhelm. Yeah, I just feel this is a very strong card that can do a lot of damage, especially in this deck, making being able to survive also very nice. Also from dying from like cards like Vengeance, you should also be able to survive. So yeah, I just think this is an excellent card for this deck. I think every version of Vayne wants to play this card if you're going for an equipment package, which I am, and I think this is a very strong card. Definitely including it here. And for spells, we're playing the Entrancing Lure. It gives an energy challenger, and if it's equipped, draw 1. Allows us to cycle through our deck. The Demacia normally doesn't have a lot of draw, so being able to cycle through your deck is nice. We also have a lot of equipments in the deck, and being able to give some of them challenger, especially something like the Bloodcursed Harpy, or if you put a weapon on the Defector, being able to have a Scout with challenger is going to be very strong, and allows you to clear a lot of threats. So I feel this is a strong inclusion in the deck. Then we play Sharpsight. We can use this to block some elusives if Nami is still going to be strong. I did see Nami received a small nerf, but I still think she's going to be strong. Allowing you to block elusives so you can prevent lethal damage is going to be strong. But also getting Vayne out of damage spells, making her being able to survive so she can actually level and see more attacks. I think is going to be very good in this deck. We might want to shift to 2 copies, but I'm going for 3 because I think this is just a strong card that warrants playing. Golden Aegis is a very strong card, allows us to give barrier to one of our allies and also rally. And rally is going to help us level Vayne a lot more if you can get 2 attacks off, one by either tumbling or having a scout unit and then rallying. That's going to help level Vayne a lot. Just a very strong card and also a very good finisher. Just if you cleared some of their board with your attacks and then being able to attack again to go for lethal, just very strong. So yeah, I feel like this is a very good inclusion in the deck. Then I've decided to run 2 copies of Parts Made Whole. As I said, Demacia doesn't have a lot of draw cards in their region, so this card allows us to draw some cards. You probably have a lot of equipments in your hand. You don't need all of them, especially if you have a Jax equipment in your hand that is not leveled yet. You might want to get rid of it because the next Jax you're going to play is going to get the equipment anyway. And also this allows us to, with burst speed, summon a unit that we can use for blocking or for attacking for lethal. So I feel this is a very strong deck. Also allows us to cycle through our decks, find the cards we need in certain matchups. Yeah, I think 2 copies of this are definitely warranted in the deck. And then the final cards we're going to play are 2 Concerted Strikes. You need ways to deal with your opponent's big threats. Sometimes giving something challenger and attacking them just isn't going to be enough. And then Concerted Strikes comes there to help you. Picking enemy, 2 allies strike it one after another, should be able to let you deal with their biggest threats while not clearing any of us. Very strong card potentially. Yeah, that's the deck. I think this is going to be a fun deck. I think most people are going to come with some combination of Jax and Vayne. But I think this is a good version that you could play, and I'm definitely going to be playing this version. And then I have one final deck for you. I have to say it's a little bit of a personal favorite. As I said in the revealed cards video that I did, I really like Riven, so the last deck is going to be Riven Viktor. So here it is, the Riven Viktor deck. I do seem to have a bug here and I don't know how to fix it. If you count up all the cards in this deck, you're not going to end up on 40 but 37. That's because the new card, the Rune Squire, is actually not in here with the followers. But it should be there. I did check and it is in the deck. If you count the amount of 2-cost cards, you will find that it fits exactly. But it doesn't show here, so you'll have to just pretend that it's there. So a Riven Viktor deck, I really like Riven. Riven is a champion, one of the champions I played when I first got her. I played a lot of it. I even brought her to Seasonals, the Seasonals that Kai'Sa was strong. I brought her as my 3rd deck, and I did pretty well with it. So yeah, Riven got some new support. He got a, well, you have to believe me because it's not showing up in here, but it's a 2-mana 2/1 challenger that if it's played reforges, allowing you to get more of the blade fragments, allowing you to level up Riven even easier, but also very strong with Viktor because all of those blade fragments and even the blade itself are all created cards that only cost 1, allowing you to buff your augment creatures but also level up Viktor, so all your created cards are going to be cheaper and Viktor is going to be a lot more scary. So that's the idea of the deck. So yeah, Riven, if you don't know the Blade of the Exile, you need to play 3 blade fragments. Every time you reforge, you get one of the blade fragments. The blade fragments are 1-mana spells that either give +2 attack, quick attack, or overwhelm. And if you've played 3 different blade fragments, and you should also always get them in the different order, so you always get them. So if you get 3 blade fragments, you will always have 3 unique ones. And once you've played all 3 of them, you get a Blade of the Exile in your hand, which is a slow 1-mana cost spell that gives +2 attack, quick attack, and overwhelm. And it grants it to one of your units instead of until the end of the round, which the Blade Fragments does. Riven, when she's level, also says that all the attack that she gains from the first time she gains attack is doubled. So if you play the Blade on the Exile on her, well, she is the first, it's the first attack buff that she gets that turn. She'll actually get +4 attack, making her 8 attack already with quick attack and overwhelm. That can be quite frightening for her opponent. The quick attack and overwhelm can also be very strong for Viktor, because if you play a lot of these blade fragments while Viktor is on the field, he gets +1/+0 every time because he has augment, and then granting him quick attack and overwhelm, so he cannot die from the attack and deals extra damage, is also very strong. So that's the reason why these two are included. Let's go over the other cards. Of course, you have the Blade Squire. It's a 1 mana 2/1. Whenever it dies, it reforges, giving you a Blade Fragment, natural inclusion into the deck. Ballistic Bot. I find this is a very strong card. It allows you to get a spell to level up Viktor and also give augment buffs. But just having augment while you play Blade Fragments make this a big threat, because sometimes you don't draw your Viktor, and then you want another creature to have augment while you use the Blade Fragments. That actually gets a lot of buffs. And you can even use the Blade of the Exile on this. So it becomes a big threat. Yeah, very strong card in this deck. Even though it has been nerfed, I still think this is a very strong card. Then we play the Fallen Rider. We play some discard cards, and after you discard this card and you get the Risen Rider, that will actually count as a created card, and it's also a very strong card. It's 2 mana 4/2 with Fearsome. Just a way to chip in some damage before you get our combo off to deal a lot of damage, so we can finish our opponent. Then we have Runeweaver. 2 mana 3/1, when it's summoned reforges, natural inclusion just to get the Blade Fragments to level Riven. And also very strong with the Viktor with the augment cards. Then here should be a Rune Squire, which you won't see. It's a 2 mana 2/1 challenge I already talked about. When you summon him, reforge. Same goes for him. You just want all the reforge cards just because you want to get the Blade Fragment so you can level your Riven, get your augment buffs, and close out the game. Then I've decided to add 3 copies of Neon Droid. It has elusive and augment. Getting augment buff on something elusive makes it so you don't have to play the Blade of the Exile on it to make it a big threat, because your opponent will have a hard time blocking this unless they play a lot of elusive means by themselves. So yeah, just a strong card in this deck, because you have a lot of cheap spells that you're going to be able to proc the augment buff on. And then the last follower we play in the deck is the Ruined Reckoner. When it summons, it creates a Midnight Raid into hand. That's a created 0-cost card that you can play to get your augment buffs on, but it also allows you to get a free attack with one of your minions. Usually you want to pick the minion with the Blade of the Exile in it, but you could also pick the Neon Droid if your opponent doesn't have any elusive minions on the board, or just pick a strong unit that you have to get an attack in to either do some damage or to kill a blocker. Very strong deck to close out. Very strong card to close out the game if you've already made a giant Riven or a giant Viktor or a giant Neon Droid or a giant Ballistic Bot. All of those cards work really well with this card. Then we go into the spells. We're playing 3 copies of Poro Cannon. This allows us to discard either the Fallen Rider or even the Ballistic Bot, the Ignition, if we don't really want to play it. To get 2 Poros, they have elusive, allowing us to deal in some chip damage. And also both of the Poros are going to be created, allowing us to level up Viktor a little bit easier, or to just gain augment buffs on our creatures while also playing some minor threats that can deal damage to your opponent. We play 3 copies of Mystic Shot. We can either use this to remove opponent's threats that we find really annoying to deal with, that make our game goal a little bit harder, or we can use this to deal the finishing damage to their Nexus and close the game. Same goes with Get Excited. It allows us to discard the Fallen Riders or survival skills that I'm going to come to later, and deal out closing damage or deal with some annoying threat that our opponent has. For instance, Misfortune could be a threat you saw earlier on that you might want to deal with. There could be other examples that you just want to get rid of so you can actually advance your own game plan. And otherwise, we just use this as a finisher. Drum Solo is a new card I want to include in here. I feel like both both Viktor and Ballistic Bot create cards that are cheap. We play Poro Cannon, which is a cheap spell, and Mystic Shot, which is relatively cheap, and all the Blade Fragments are only 1 costed. So I think Flow should be relatively easy to activate. One of the things this deck lacked was card draw, and this card draw is very strong. Assuming you get the Flow effect, you only draw 2 cards for 1 cost, unless you get unlucky and draw either the Poro Cannon or the Blade Squire. Then it's a little bit of a less of a cost reduction, but otherwise the cost reduction is going to be massive, allowing us to play our hand, play a tempo while also drawing cards. So I feel this is a very natural and strong inclusion in the deck. And as a 40th card, we play Survival Skills. We run Poro Cannon and Get Excited, so we can get the effect when discarded whenever we want to react to something. And sometimes your opponent will try to kill your Viktor, or your Knee Android, or your Ballistic Bot, or your Riven when it's the strongest ally, and you can just deny him killing it by discarding this from your hand with a Get Excited or a Poro Cannon, and allowing the damage to go through, making us win the game. I just feel like you want to only play one of this card because you only want it every so often. You don't need this every game. Sometimes your opponent just plays Vengeance. Survival Skills isn't going to help against that. But every once in a while, this is a very good card to be discarded with your Poro Cannon, with your Get Excited to save your big creature, and you're going to be happy about it. So that's the 40th card. So those are the 4 decks I want to present to you that you can play on the new when Domination releases later today. I'm definitely going to be playing all 4 of these a lot, and also making some videos about that. So keep my channel, keep a watch on my channel so you can see the videos, or subscribe so you can get notified whenever they come online. And I hope you have a lot of fun with the new expansion. I know I'm going to have, and I wish you all a very good day. I'll see you next time.